Good evening, everyone. My name is Kay Castro. I am Vice Chair of the Parks Commission, and we are missing Mr. Chairperson O'Reilly tonight, so we're going to start without him. As far as we know, he will be coming. But we're going to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I hope. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Madam Assistant Clerk, roll call?
Commissioner Castro,
Oh, I did it backwards. I'm sorry. Here.
Commissioner Whitley, Commissioner Khan,
Here.
Commissioner Krantz,
Here.
Commissioner O'Reilly.
Thank you. We've already said the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have any hearing of non-agenda items?
Ms. Chairperson, I have not received any public comment cards for this meeting.
Thank you. On to regular business. We will now review and approve an updated loan agreement with Brian and Louisa Wong.
Good evening, Vice Chair Castro. In front of you, we have a staff report that was brought back for you with edits. So we have taken liberty to add the recommendations from this body of items that needed updating in this loan agreement. So you can see on page 5 and actually all of them. So 5, 6, and 7 have new verbiage that have been added with the recommendations from this body. So there's
Ms. Daly, I have a question for you about the 3 items that are listed here, but on the agenda, there's another puppet somewhere. Number 2. So under 1 regular business, but number 2 is puppet. Is it the same puppet?
No, and number 2 is under reports and discussions. So that's something that we will get to, and it's
Okay.
actually a different puppet.
Different puppet. Okay, thank you.
So we have made many edits to it, one including the changing it to a 2-year loan agreement with a 6-month inspection by city staff and lead docent. We have added the verbiage of frame description of all artifacts at the museum that are on loan from. We would like these to be displayed in a temperature-controlled environment without ultraviolet lighting. The artifact condition assessed and approved before transported, and loan extension must be requested 60 days prior to the end of the agreement, and the city can request the return of any items within a 30-day notice.
Are there any questions from the commissioners? I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Wong, for being here, and I'm going to assume that you're all in favor of the revised agreement?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to propose to the group that the city absorb the costs for the physical display cases for the items. The reason for that is that Mr. Wong is taking considerable interest in helping support our museums and support our community and providing some real synergy. We talked at our last meeting about the possibility of this possibly being somewhat of a model or something that we can do maybe for other groups, or possibly traveling after this 2-year at the union. So I'm wondering, and I have no idea how much it costs, but I'm wondering if the city could could be responsible for the actual cases themselves as a purchase for Mr. Wong, instead of Mr. Wong incurring the expense to create the display cases. It's not on the agenda. I don't even know if I can bring it up, but
That also can be brought up under non-agenda items future staff
Future?
reports. But one thing that we would need to know is what the cost would be for the production of those cases. Two, this is a circumstance in which we haven't visited before. Three would be a funding mechanism. It's outside of a normal budgeted item, and so we would have to review that further before any decision could be made. Again, it's not an item that's been agendized, so that we would have to bring it back for more information.
is there a way to do that before the next meeting in August, so we can keep moving?
That
on
would
the
be a
project?
request for future staff reports. And so I would need the request to come from 2 commissioners to make it an agenda item.
And would it be the city staff that looks at the costs and establishes the costs?
We
or
would
Mr.
work with
Wong?
Mr. Wong to see what the cost would be. Again, this is new territory, so we'll have to look deeper into it.
Well, I'm really excited about the territory. So, Michelle or Andy?
I would
What do you-
certainly agree to be a co-presenter with another commissioner in that proposal.
Thank you.
What I have a question is, if I might, is can we move along with the application form, the form itself, with the caveat that this can maybe be adopted at a later date, the idea of the cost of the cases themselves? I mean, can we accept this application and then add a note that it's a possibility the city may pay for them?
Yes, this agreement would be moving forward in the condition that it's in, if the Park Commission chooses to approve it. The discussion of the repayment or the purchasing of the cases for the artifacts is a separate discussion item. This item under the policy can still move forward as it is with the amended agreement. So that's the item that we're here to take action on this evening.
Because I'd like to see it move forward.
Yep, I would too. I don't want it to stop. So you need a motion to accept this. Do we put into the motion? Thank you for help with the process today. Do we put into the motion with the direction to staff to please do
That
or
would
not?
come
After.
under director's reports, a request for a staff report
Okay.
separately. So, hi, welcome.
Michelle or Andy? Bobby, we're about to make a motion to approve Mr. Wong's addended, changed, update loan agreement. We've also asked staff to put on the agenda as an agenda-sized item, the possibility of the city finding funding to pay for the actual display cases themselves, the physical display cases, so that it would not have to be on his expense, because they are city property, and we can, a few of us believe that as a city, we should provide the actual display case, and then he will do everything else hermetically sealed and whatever it is at his end.
Okay, so just to clarify, this loan care agreement, does it have in here that the Wongs will provide the display?
That's under the scope of the policy and procedures, that the person receiving the loan will take care of, basically, depending on what the object is, take care of it in such a way to preserve it. So this was the remedy for preserving it.
My concern, though, is if, just to get specificity before I can vote on this. We have the agreement. I have not had an opportunity to read completely through the agreement. I want to make sure that there's a proposal to staff to try to find a means for a city to pay for the display. But if it's in the agreement for the Wongs to pay for the display.
And Chairperson O'Reilly, that was an item that we just discussed, is that we could approve this agreement with the amendments as they were recommended at the previous Park Commission meeting. And then we, at the director's reports and recommendation for staff reports, it would be a request for a future staff report. Again, I only caution this body in making this decision to purchase the encasements for these items because that opens the door for doing it for all future loans. And so it could be costly and it's outside of the scope of what the policy and procedure is. So playing devil's
Meaning what?
advocate, letting you know, meaning that it's not, when an item is loaned through the policy and procedure item, that the city does not pay for the protection of that item.
Right.
The protection of the item falls upon the person loaning the item.
Right, I agree.
And the reason that I'm bringing it up is it was my understanding that these items are very, very specific in size and in individual care that would be needed, for example, for that puppet. I know we can't vote on, yes, we will pay for it. We don't even know what it costs yet. Could be $10 for a display case or $1,000, we don't know. I'd at least like to bring it back to the commission. This is what it would cost in this instance. Just because we haven't done it before doesn't mean we can't do it now.
Right, right. I just had to explain both sides. You know, we'll look into it, but it could be exorbitant and the council may. So,
Okay. Thank you. You want to call for the motion, or are you, bada bing? Need a motion on this as it stands.
All right. Yeah. Would anybody like to make a motion on the loan care agreement as it is written?
I will. This is Michelle, and I will make a motion that we accept the loan agreement as it stands with perhaps future input.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Can we do that with future input, Dawn?
you can with future input, but again, we would like it to be a separate request for,
So right now, we just need a motion for this agreement.
Okay, I can do that. So I make a motion that we accept this agreement with Brian Wong and family.
Mr. Wong, before I move forward, have you read this agreement?
We already took
Yes.
that out.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay, we already asked him.
I was at a fire.
I know, okay.
All right.
Not at the
So
gym, happy
we
to
have
be
a
at the
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
First and a second.
Commissioner Khan, how do you vote?
Yes,
The motion passes with 4 yeses and 1 absent.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Wong. It's, again, very appreciative that you and your family and your business wish to take the initiative to, I won't say start something, but pick back something up that's been not very prevalent and carry that. It's greatly appreciated. Moving on to reports, discussions, and correspondence. There's puppet donation.
yes, at the previous Park Commission meeting, Mr. David Dewey had discussed the previous discussion from past, the possibility of donating the puppet pieces and crates to the Chinese Museum in San Francisco. I have since spoken with Mr. Dewey, and he said that there wasn't correspondence with the museum or an interest from them. It was just an idea. So before shipping our artifacts off to a museum, I emailed the Chinese Historical Society and asked if they would be interested in viewing those items, assessing them, and providing us with a proposed value so that we know what we have in our archives. So we're taking that approach first.
So basically, we would like to get a appraisal.
It wouldn't be an official appraisal.
Okay.
They don't do that, but they would just give us an idea of the general value and desirability of what it is that we have in our collection.
Awesome. Any comments?
We received an answer.
I have not received an answer yet, no. I emailed an inquiry, and I'm going to follow that up with a phone call.
No other comments? Do you have comment?
I'd also like to, as part of this, and I bet you we're going to do this, look at opportunities for us to loan them within our community first, instead of the museum in San Francisco.
I believe the idea with loaning them, sorry, Jordan, with loaning them to the museum in San Francisco would be to increase the visibility of these artifacts throughout the region. So.
Just so you know, the puppets parts that are inside these crates, they've been around here a very long time, but they are just pieces and parts.
Yeah, they're not
They
puppets.
them to try to put together another puppet, and they weren't enough compatible parts to put together another puppet. So and they have been here quite some time. So it's kind of a question as to their worth. They're valuable in the sense that they're old and they're puppet pieces, but they probably will not be useful in making, like I said, making another puppet. So it's kind of loaning just pieces out wouldn't work in most cases.
Right.
Michelle, with what you know, just quick question, would they be usable for somebody who has puppets who needs pieces or parts of?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know that I honestly don't know. I've only seen a few of the puppet parts myself.
Okay,
Yeah. Box. I think it's about 3 or 4 boxes.
awesome, thank you. Mr. Wong?
Hi, yes. I just want to give everybody in this room a little bit of history on what we have here in our museum and where it comes from and how we can better market it, especially if we want to generate interest. And even if we want to have like a relationship overseas with the region of China where a lot of these artifacts came from. So the Chan family, actually the temple itself is from the Canton region of where I'm from. Actually, there's a sister Chan temple in China, in Canton. And they actually know about the temple here too. So I know that temple exists over there. I have not been to that location in China, but then they're aware that we exist. A lot of the artifacts that we have here is very special because I guess the word to use is almost molest. It's not molested by the Chinese Communist Party when they took over. Because a lot of everything was destroyed when they took over, like during the communist cultural revolution. They burned books and many things. So what we have here that's survived time, survived all those things. So now that like China is a pretty wealthy nation, they value a lot of these things that they have lost. So yes, it is true that we have a lot of valuable art projects there. So if we want to get a good assessment of what their value and everything else, I think you probably need some experts that specializes in like the time period and also the region where they came from. And that would be like the Canton region. And
Very
the
good.
exact county is like the county where most of the miners came from, which is like the county where I'm from too.
What do they call it?
Oh, Toisan. That's
Say
the
it.
county. Toisan.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. That's very good. You're very knowledgeable in that stuff, Mr. Wong. Have you seen have you seen most of what we have in our Chinese museum and storage area?
Yes. So the first time I had a chance to walk through the temple and the museum, it brought a tear to my eyes because when I was a child, my grandmother was a school teacher, so she told me many stories and folklore. So going into the temple, seeing many things that relate to the stuff that she told me about, and to find it here in Oroville, to me, that was amazing.
Wow.
And I've had trips going back to China as well. And even in the museums over there, they do not have anything like we have in our little temple. So
That's
we have
awesome.
something truly special, yes.
So a lot of these things were harbored with the individuals who came over and safeguarded.
It seems to me like some of the artifacts were, but because of the status of one of the Chan family members that came over, it seemed like he had a lot of status, and that's where a lot of the artifacts came from.
Very good. I'd like to
Yes.
sit down with you someday and have a conversation about this stuff.
Yes. And also what's nice is the pieces together as a whole tells a story. It tells us like of a time, a place. And so I think it's really important that, even in the future, if we were to loan it out, that we document it and then keep all these pieces intact. Because once they're separated, the loss, the meaning and the significance kind of like loses itself.
Gotcha. Understood.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Krantz?
So my question is, are you talking about these items being displayed at the Asian Museum at Civic Center?
The one I'm discussing is the Chinese Historical Society of America. That's the museum I inquired with.
Okay.
We've reached out to them previously to kind of give a background on artifacts in the past that we've received, and so they've been a connection over the years.
So
ahead.
there, are you proposing that these items would be on display?
No, I
Or
first
they're just
proposed that
for-
we take the donation piece off the table.
Okay.
And we invite them to review and assess what we have. These crates and the puppet pieces have been a discussion for many years. I felt that it would probably be better if we just had somebody review and assess what we have, and give us a better understanding. So.
And if you can't get an answer with them, can you
I have
continue?
other connections. I also have Mr. Wong, but I have another connection from San Francisco, Mr. David Lee, and so he has provided us insight on artifacts in the past as well.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Castro?
Commissioner Khan, you might know better than I as lead docent. It's my understanding that prior to COVID, it was either the Asian Museum that Commissioner Krantz mentioned or Ms. Nevers about the Historical Society. By busloads, they would send people up from San Francisco to our temple. And it make it part of, it was so important that they come and see that complete collection. And it's known as one of the largest complete collections outside of China, even within the San Francisco realm, correct?
Yes.
So
They also would stop at Tong Fong Loaf for lunch.
right, okay, so, thank you, I just wanted to clarify that.
Any other comments? None. Thank you, Ms. Nevers. Moving on to number 3, docent newsletter and report. Commissioner Khan?
Well, we do have the lot home open now. So 4 of the museums are open, which is really a good thing. They're still on limited hours and they're still limited days. We don't know. We're having a lead docent meeting on the 17th, I believe, and we're going to, yeah, that's the day, and we're going to discuss a few things about needs and wants and hours, and if we want to change hours and days and that sort of thing. I did mention in the newsletter that we're not working at the lot home and the water cooler thing wasn't, but it's now been fixed, so that's been repaired, and it's cool in there when they need it in the lot home. I was checking the website. Remember last meeting we talked about the website, and I went and looked at the website today, and I noticed that they still don't have, on the website, they don't have the lot home is open. And I checked the phone number for making reservations, which is the 538-2401. And there's no one there to answer the phone, and it goes through 8, press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And none of those are buttons to make a reservation on the phone. I was just checking stuff, so. And then also on the website, it said that the bathhouse and the nature center were only open on Saturdays, and the bathhouse museum is only open on Saturday, but the nature center itself is open whenever the gates open. Isn't that right, Wade? The nature center is open most of the week?
Yes, from dawn to dusk, or dusk to dawn, depending on if you're camping or not.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that because we've talked about updating the website and making sure it's accurate. And the other thing I noticed is when I was looking at the website, it takes 5 clicks to get to a museum from the front page all the way back to look at a museum. And there is one spot on the front page, a couple clicks, but all it does is show pictures of the museums. It doesn't even give their addresses. And then again, the phone number is incorrect. So for information, there's no one that answers that phone. It's just a recording. So I think those things need to be addressed. Other than that, the docents are pretty happy to be back. We hope to open the Pioneer on the 26th of this month. I think the doors will be done then. I don't know. Wade, will the doors be done?
They're gonna start installing the doors tomorrow morning at 7:15, and they anticipate having them done by Friday.
Oh, wonderful.
If all goes
We'll have
well.
doors. And then the other thing I didn't mention, well, I did slightly mention in the notes, I talked about the Manassian Memorial area, and I knew that they worked on it some. I don't know if they completed it? Is it being worked on any again?
That's all in my reports, but,
Okay, oh, that's, yeah. I just was wondering. And then the gazebo was supposed to have been finished and completed too. Painted, so, and that's what I know so far. Are there any questions of me?
Commissioner Castro?
Again, help me with process, but at the last city council meeting, the Native Sons spoke in non-agenda items requesting the city or asking the city to consider giving back, I don't know what that means, but giving back the Pioneer Museum to the Native Sons. I think it should come to here first before council, but again, I'm not trying to stop free speech from council meetings by any means, but is that an appropriate place to start, would be here?
That has been a long discussion with the Native Sons. The former administration and our city attorney had been in numerous discussions with them. We asked them to produce documentation showing that it was in fact the Native Sons at one point. They have not been able to produce that documentation, so therefore we do not have the grounds to give the museum back to the Native Sons. So that's where we stand with that conversation.
And I'd just like to add that anything that falls under our purview, a park, a museum, a tree, if people want them or whatever the case may be, I agree with you, Commissioner Castro, that our commission meeting is probably the best place to start. because we'd like to know about it prior to hearing it as sitting in on a council meeting. Any other comments for Commissioner Khan and the docent updates?
Ken, I had a couple questions, if you don't mind, about some of the things I thought we were going to discuss possibly this meeting. I thought there was going to be more discussion on the Adopt a Park program as a request from last month or a couple months ago. And I also thought there was going to be some discussion about our request for additional staff for the Parks Department to act as liaison between the docents and them. And that was something we had requested also.
So
Putting on that.
Commissioner Khan, what's that, Dawn? I'm sorry.
We will be reporting on the position.
Oh, they have a staff report for you, but
Okay.
I too didn't see a lot of things or very much listed on this agenda, and I went back and watched the last Parks Commission meeting from start to end. Well, it starts quite a ways into the meeting, but from what is on the accessible video, and I'm going to use the word disappointed to see such a small agenda with as many things that were talked about and addressed as to what we as commissioners wished to talk about. So before I say too much more on that, I think there is a good possibility that staff may have reports on a lot of that stuff that maybe it's just not listed on here. So.
I'd like to add that I agree completely with you, and I would like to see it as agenda-sized items versus just staff reports. So if anyone in the community is interested about those items, they would know in advance to tune in on Zoom or come to the meeting.
So typically, when we have items like that that are not actionable, we just provide an update on the items in these, the reports and discussions and correspondence portion of the meeting. But if you would like them in staff reports to be informational only, an individual staff report for each item, we can do that.
I think what the consensus may be, correct me if I'm wrong, is, and getting ready to say this, I understand the time consumption of it, or the possibility of such, but in the staff reports, listing in the agenda what the staff is going to be reporting on. So if there's anybody interested in hearing about that, they can.
Okay, we can add that to that section there as
Okay.
well.
Item number 4, council budgets recommendations for 21-22.
Do you want to hand out that packet, Jordan?
I think they all have it already. There is a packet that has been placed at each one of your chairs. The first page is from the preliminary budget, I believe. The first page?
Oh, yes.
It's pulled straight from the preliminary budget that was presented to council, last council meeting. So page 17 of that, and it breaks down the funding, revenues and expenditures from the Public Works Operations and Parks Division. So you can see it breaks down it by year. So we have actual and budget, projected and preliminary.
Are we as the Parks Commission responsible for the Centennial Culture Center, the Oroville Convention Center, and State Theater?
No, the State Theater is no longer a city-owned building. The Centennial Cultural Center is a rentable facility that's currently being occupied by Catalyst in a section of it, but it hasn't been rented otherwise at this time. And then the Oroville Convention Center, no, that is now under the purview of the YMCA.
And what is under other? Or we don't care at all about municipal buildings?
Other would be other outbuildings, municipal buildings revenue. I don't recall what's lumped in with other, but I can look that up. And this is just a budget sheet directly out of the budget, so I apologize that some of them don't fall under the purview of the Park Commission, but that is the
Okay.
full budget for this section.
It's not really the full budget for the section because the Oroville Convention Center is funded from multiple funding sources.
And that's true.
So, okay, thank you. Where is the Nature Center?
Oh, in the yellow.
No, we're talking about
Oh,
on the first page.
That probably falls under other.
Other.
Okay. So Jordan, do you have more?
I was just going to explain the two next graphs, but we can discuss this as much as you would like.
Commissioner Castro, can we let Jordan get through her presentation and then address her questions?
It's totally fine. I was just going to show the next two that Jackie's going to have displayed for you guys that are in your packet. And I apologize, Michelle, we didn't do the first one as digital for you. They are just a pie chart breakdown of the funding, just to show the difference between fiscal year 1920 and fiscal year 2021. Just show how the funding has changed and how it's impacted.
I'm sorry, I've got vandalism report.
It is. It's a vandalism report.
Oh, my apologies.
So it shows what staff time has been devoted to vandalism and the cleanup of vandalism within areas that are throughout the city, but primarily our parks and trees operations that's dedicated to vandalism. You'll see the green areas, the Lot Home, the Chinese Temple Nature Center, Centennial Cultural Center, Hewitt Park, and on throughout the remainder of our parks. So it is a substantial amount annually that is spent with our parks team on cleaning up vandalism in our parks. And so that takes away from the routine maintenance that they don't get to because they're taking care of that vandalism. So this is just kind of a snapshot for basically transparency for you guys.
Is that, you're good?
Yeah, Don's helping
So-
me out. Thanks.
Sorry. So I have some issues with this. So we spent $0 on the Chinese temple in 2019 through 2020 on vandalism. And the Nature Center and the Municipal Auditorium and the Pioneer.
And that would be because much of our staff was either we didn't have staff or it got lumped into Parks and Trees operations. Because, again, Wade can speak to this because I was only here for part of that year. Minimal bare bones staff didn't get sectioned out into Chinese Temple Nature Center, Municipal Auditorium, Pioneer Museum, got lumped into the Parks and Trees operations. So it'll get better going forward, especially now that we're staffing up. We've created special accounts for other irrigation as well, specifically. We can identify vandalism for irrigation, things like that. So it can get a little more fine-tuned going forward. It'll be a more visible picture.
Okay, so for me, my comment on this item, and I guess this would be a good time to do this under reports, discussions, and correspondence. I do have a section coming up that I'm going to read off of the last agenda because it's not on here for commissioner reports, future agenda items. Well, those two things because they're not on here. But I would like to see
And that was
I
an
want-
oversight. Future agenda items should be on there, so I apologize.
not a problem. I would like to make a formal request for our next Parks meeting to have specifically an agenda item that we are going to sit as a commission to discuss the park funds in all that we encompass, our parks, museums, trees, that anything that falls under our purview, so we as commissioners can see where we're at on what's coming into the park fund, what's going out of the park fund, and so that we can see where we can recommend, well, for the park fund, we don't really have to make recommendations to council because we make those, but so that we can see, so that we as commissioners can see what's going on with the things that we're doing up here, because we are the commissioners for these areas. We're not seeing these things. All we're doing is sitting here at meetings and talking about ideas and hearing staff reports, but we're not seeing on paper like this. This would be great if it had understandably and very respectfully that COVID hit and things and dropping staff members. I fully understand. But I think, and I speak for myself, I may share the sentiment of other commissioners, we need to see what we're dealing with in order to prepare and plan what our goals are to make our parks and museums better. We can't do that without the information. And I know that I've asked a few times within the last few years to have a full comprehensive parks budget. And at the last commission meeting, we did discuss having a full comprehensive budget with all the expenses and stuff, understanding that that's very time consuming with everything that breaks out of that. Something like this is perfectly acceptable for what I'm trying to see. If it had the information for the things that fall under our purview, the up-to-dates, like I'm gonna just, and again, very respectfully and understandably knowing, but if these, like Centennial Culture Center, Oroville Convention Center, State Theater, if they are not under the parks purview, there is no reason for them to be on a parks budget. There should be no funding coming out of or into the parks account for those things that are not in the park purview. In my opinion, I'm just speaking my opinion here. Only things that are under our purview are the things that I'm looking for.
Well, they can still fall within the parks budget,
Okay.
but they don't necessarily fall under the purview of the park commission. So there's still a separation there of some of those items, even though they fall under that same budget umbrella. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay, I'll get it to make sense for you, I
Okay.
promise.
I'm sorry.
And
And that
I
might
would-
be where my disconnect is.
That's okay, and I will do a presentation for the next meeting.
Okay.
For you.
And I might be able to add to this because Mr. Legrone and I have spent many hours looking at this budget, not just this, but the budget overall. And I asked exactly the same question. If the Parks Commission is responsible for trees, as an example, this is not the entire trees budget. The trees budget's 3 or 4 different places within the city budget. So I think that it's complicated because is it under the purview for decision-making? Or are we gonna get a budget that says, this is what it costs for parks? Because it's everywhere, Bobby. There's special funds, there's all kinds of things for our parks that are certainly a lot more than the Lot Home or the Pioneer Museum for $700. Is that your understanding?
Yes. There's multiple accounts and budgets that funding comes from throughout the city for
Yeah.
various things. It's not cut and dry.
Okay, so let me try to specify a little or a little more for clarification. What I would really like to see is anything that just falls under our purview. I mean, I'd like to see the rest, but what I'm really concerned about seeing is whatever we have a decision-making responsibility for.
Okay.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
mention something? Back on when I was on the park commission before, you had Jim Prouty, and there was a report that was given that Jim
Jackie,
was easy
can we
to
see?
read. It wasn't pie charts and so on and so forth. It was figures and columns. And I was wondering if that style of report might be better.
Yes.
Because Jim was pretty picky about wanting to see funds and where they went and so on and so forth.
And what we used to present was a revenue and expenditure report, but there were no revenues and expenditures, there were no revenues for the parks and museums last year. And so that was what it covered. And so we can produce it for the previous year so you have an idea of what that report looks like. And we can continue as things are opening again, now that our museums are open. We're going to start producing that report again so you see exactly the revenues and expenditures for each museum and each park and so on.
Okay.
That's what I would,
Yeah.
but yeah. I was-
Our reports are bleak this year because it was a funky year.
Right, and that's, like I said, for me, hey, I fully understand, and I hope that anything that I've said isn't construed as disrespectful or otherwise. I've been on this commission now for, I don't know, a couple of years, I guess. And I've yet to see everything that falls under our purview. And there's been many small discussions, conversations about, this may, this might, this does, this don't, this was, now it's not. I think as a commission, it's our responsibility to understand everything that falls under us that we're going to be making either recommendations for or decisions about, so we have a full understanding.
And thank you for your clarification, and I do agree that you need to have the full understanding of what's within your purview as commissioners. So I think I understand my marching orders, and I will have a presentation for you this next meeting.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments for item number 4, the council budget recommendations? Commissioner Castro?
This means absolutely no disrespect either. I love pie charts. I love it. But the colors aren't the same from one year to the next.
I know.
It would make it so much easier if the colors were the same, because that looks like a big chunk here, but it's a really tiny chunk, but it's a big, okay.
We'll make it consistent for the next one. I do believe Jordan had some more updates for you.
Go ahead.
Do. Yes, so moving forward, there has been discussion about opening all of our parks, which we are hoping once the mandate is dropped, the 15th, we are hoping to reopen parks.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. Is there a council meeting between now and the 15th?
There's
No.
a special council
Special.
meeting tomorrow morning, and it's a presentation of the unfunded liability
Okay.
for the city of Oroville.
Sorry, go ahead.
So no, just special meeting. So we're moving forward with, hopefully, once that mandate is dropped, we'll be able to move forward with opening all of our parks for reservations. So we're moving forward with that, as well as we have reached out to Chico State in hopes of possibly partnering with them or moving forward with possibly getting an intern as some volunteer hours as a curator. We're just starting the conversation with them, and it's something that we hope that we can move forward and have partnership in the future with them. They do have a program over there for that, so we've reached out to the history and arts department. And I will bring back update once I have more. As well as, let's see on here, we have I've received a docent fee waiver. Oh, yes.
Well, Commissioner Khan, I remember you speaking very strongly about the need. I'm very grateful for an intern. I'm really grateful we're partnering with Chico State. But I
Possibly.
remember hearing in a meeting how important it really was to have a formalized curator. What are your feelings on that?
There needs to be someone formalized within the city who acts as a liaison. If they're curator, that would be great, but even if it was a specific position that whenever somebody comes and goes, that position remains and is a contact person, because like now, the reservations that they're talking about for the museum, I just had one for the museum, and it came from it. It's not working as well as it should. So we need someone who is someone at a position that's just formalized to be our liaison, regardless of whether it's curator or not. I guess that's what I mean.
Well, and we have formalized Jordan as that liaison. She's a part-time liaison for the docents and then part-time for the Supplemental Benefits Fund. And so we're still working out the kinks with our reservation process. We've run tests through the online reservation process on our website. The tests have been successful. We've tried to call in on the number. We do have a phone tree. It's a bit of an onerous process. It's really kind of a headache, but it's the phone tree that we've been given, so we're trying to work through that. I apologize for that being so frustrating. It is frustrating to me as well. I just start punching buttons to get to somebody. We're getting there. But we are moving forward. Jordan's been doing a very good job of trying to make sure that we are getting our new docents through the process, because the application process for a docent is also a bit of a task, and they have to do the background check and the live scan fingerprinting. And so she's been working hand in hand with the new docent applicants, the docents, and human resources. So we are moving forward with that as well.
For the docent live scanning, does the city pay that cost?
Yes, we do. We provide the docent with a pre-populated form of city information. They just fill out their personal information, take that to the Butte County Sheriff's Department, and then that in turn gets funded back or applied or invoiced back to the city, and the city pays for it.
So we're doing our best, Michelle, as the liaison. It's my first
Well,
year taking that over, so.
I didn't know you were actually designated now. Great. That
think
means you'll
so.
get more phone calls.
I think so. So moving forward, we're working with, we have new staff up front as well. So between myself and them, we are working on a better process for reservations for parks and museums, as well as, sorry, as well as, I just went blank on that one. New docents, the process for that as well. So it's fairly new to myself and them, so bear with us, but we are getting that process down. I will double check those updates on the website. I'll check that number as well as the lot home hours. My apologies. I have been trying to update those with the different hours of opening, as well as hopefully opening the Pioneer here soon. And once we do that, we had discussed with other staff that we would, once all 5 are open, possibly putting an easier plug to it on the front page. We were just kind of waiting for that and for them all 5 to be open. Once that happens, I will happily put something on the front page to gear quicker access to our information for, a temporary hey, we're back kind of thing on our website, as well as social media. Same thing with the parks. We are working on putting out open for reservations starting, once the mandate is lifted as well. Other updates I have for the commission is we have, as you are aware, we applied for it's a long name, state, I'm gonna mess it up, statewide revitalization.
Statewide Parks and Community
Revitalization Grant. Thank you.
What does that break down to in an acronym?
I was
kidding.
like, oh my gosh. So you're aware, we applied for 2. We applied for phase 2 of Hewitt Park, as well as upgrades to the Brad Freeman Trail and Bedrock Park Trail. And we have been reached out by them for a site visit. So that site visit has been scheduled with state parks and a few city staff. We're hoping that is moving in the right direction. It's not a guarantee of funding, but we just wanted to bring that to your attention that it is moving forward in hopes of possibly getting funding, we hope. Other update I have is I've received a few fee waiver requests from the docents, and those have been put on the next council agenda. They are a fee waiver, not necessarily a fee waiver, but they are requests for the craft fair at St. Park, the mistletoe party at Lot Home, and the salmon dinner. So those will go to the next council meeting on the 15th.
Commissioner Krantz is on the
Yes.
queue.
So
Go ahead.
if we could just go back for a minute to the curator
Yeah.
discussion. I think at a previous meeting, there was a proposal that the city council could be approached to create a full-time position. So is the intern curator position just being proposed until that budget is approved, or that person's salary would be approved, or that position could be approved?
It was brought to administration about the full-time position, and it was denied. So we got creative, and we are looking at the other option of reaching out to Chico State, and that's why we have gone that direction, because we've worked with Chico State in the past with their museum, and so we have decided to try to work with them and see if they could create a program out of it. So.
So then, with that said, did you have something else?
So if I could just follow up.
Absolutely.
I like partnerships and I like cooperation, but I think it would be a little more significant if a person who already resides in our community, who has a vested interest in our community, could serve in that position, even if it is somebody who is going through a program at Chico State or going through an art history course or something like that. It just seems like we already have so much going on, overlapping in Chico. Why can't we keep something here and something local if we have that opportunity?
And that was really the intent, was to find somebody who lives locally but is within the program at Chico State.
Right.
I'd like to see a locally hired curator that uses that program to further teach somebody.
Sure.
Um,
I'm done.
Okay, before you go, Commissioner Castro, the recommendation to council. So for this curator / liaison, I have on my notes to make that recommendation to council. I understand that you said that it was brought to staff, but as a commission, I'm pretty sure that our consensus was to recommend it to council.
It went to staff or administration first during the budget process, and it was denied.
So then what do we need to do as a commission to bring that to council?
Well, also the position, if it was to be brought to council, would have to be recreated. We'd have to, it's not even a funded position, so it'd have to be requested to be funded. The position would have to be created. It would have to be accepted into one of the unions, the OCEA, and then it would go from there. So
how did they fund that position before?
I believe it was funded through the Parks Department before.
And in order to get it again, they would have to do all of those steps?
Because the position was dissolved.
Okay. So I think for the next council meeting, commissioners need to
Well, I'd like
asked
to
to
know,
get
I'd like to
onto-
know how to appeal that decision from the administrator so we can take it to council, because I remember very specifically the importance and the commission's request to do exactly that process, to try to fund it, find the resources. And I know we've already missed this budget cycle, but let's start now then, because the commission did want to bring it to council. So I don't know how that works
So I
to
think-
appeal the city
Well,
administrator.
even from the last meeting to now, the position wouldn't have been able to make it to the cycle.
Right.
It would have too short of a window.
That's
So it's
okay.
something that we can take our
But to
time
start the
on.
ball rolling here.
To appeal the city
So
administrator's decision.
here's my thought. If the commissioners can get a presentation on the next council agenda to present the need for a curator and the reason why we want it or need it, and just do it as a presentation, not an action item, and let them stew on it. That's my thoughts.
Can we ask Commissioner Khan?
What are you asking me?
Well,
Did you hear any of that, Michelle?
it depends. I like your idea, Bobby. I just don't know how fast we can pull that together for June 15th. Unless
Yeah,
unless
think it
Commissioner
would-
Khan or Krantz or you.
Well, I think it's,
I-
sorry to interrupt, but I think it's very, very, very out of reach to even expect a curator by the 15th.
I'm worried about putting the presentation together by the 15th.
Gotcha.
I
So there
understand.
is,
Yeah.
there is a meeting on the 15th?
Yes.
There's a council.
Well, I just asked that.
Yeah.
No, I asked if it was before the 15th.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
Before
there's
the
nothing
15th.
before the 15th.
Okay,
Just a special before the 15th.
got you. So your concern then, Commissioner Castro, is not having time to prepare a presentation?
Who on the commission will prepare the presentation for the June 15th if we can even get it on the agenda?
Well, any of the commissioners that would like to go is what I would say. I know I'll be there.
Is it? Commissioners, I would just like to point out that the deadline for the June 15th meeting was actually June 3rd, I believe. And so that agenda, all the items have already been added and they're being approved, going through the approval process with staff. So it would actually be at the July 6th meeting if you guys were looking at something and trying to get it on the agenda.
Great.
Unless it's requested by 3 council members or the mayor?
It's still past the deadline, is
still
what
past
she's
it.
saying.
Because that agenda is being posted either tomorrow afternoon or Thursday morning. And so it's already in the process of being generated and approved.
From what I understand, there's no chance of this being put into the budget now because the budget process is complete. And if we have a long-term process, that we could start it August and start working on it for the next budget. When do they start? I don't know when they start looking at information for the next budget, but probably sometime in that period. As far as July is concerned, I will be out of town, so.
Commissioner Castro?
My real concern is that the commission did provide direction. City administrator said he denied it, and we're just hearing about it right now. If we had heard about it at the time, I do know there is input available June 15th. I know that that is not the set budget in stone that he handed out. I've talked to him, and the numbers have changed on several accounts. So I'm not saying we're going to hire and fund somebody June 15th, but
To present the idea.
present the idea.
If I have to,
How do we do that?
If I have to, I'll use non-agenda item time and present the idea in my 2 minutes I get to speak. Commissioner Krantz?
My question is, what was the compelling argument or proposal in prior years when that position existed that has changed so much that we could not have a compelling, reasonable argument for that position to be recreated? Because if we're trying to expand, if we're trying to enhance the quality of our museums, if we're trying to attract local people and people from other areas, it would seem like anything else, that is a natural progression. You have to enhance then your knowledge, your resources, and obviously that comes with paid positions. You want quality people, you want people who know what they're doing, what they're talking about, and people with the background to match what you are trying to present. So if in prior years that was considered necessary, what has changed?
Honestly, previously, when the position was dissolved, there was many positions dissolved at the time. Our staff was cut from 150 to about 100 at that time that the position was dissolved. So
When was it dissolved? If you know.
I want to say it was around 2011, 12, if I remember correctly. And so, again, there was many positions dissolved at the time. We're unique in the fact that we are a municipal government that has 5 museums. That's uncommon. It's not typical for a municipality to fund museums to keep them operating. Typically, they're funded by nonprofits or societies or other agencies or associations of that nature. So we are unique and we didn't have a robust funding mechanisms. The museums are not money makers. So that funding for that position comes from the general fund and therefore takes more away from the Parks Department. So those duties of the curator were absorbed by the Docents Association and staff. And that's just where we are today. There isn't a lot of funding to fund a full-time position for the museums. It would have to be something of a part-time nature because the museums are only open a few days a week. They don't have a robust programming because our docents are volunteers and we already expect too much of them as it is.
Well, so, okay, I'm glad you said that. If it could be approved as a part-time position, I'm just thinking off of the top of my head, wouldn't that have been something that a curator would have done that you were describing, reaching out to the museums and the resources in San Francisco? Maybe somebody doesn't want to necessarily have a full-time position doing that one thing, but maybe there would be interest in a part-time position. What about just floating that idea and seeing if there could be a compromise there?
It could be floated. Absolutely. Again, my recommendation, if anything, would be a part-time position because, as I mentioned before, we're having a special meeting tomorrow on our unfunded liability. We add another position, we add more to our unfunded liability. So I'm just taking the consideration of that also.
And a part-time does not fall into that, correct?
No. So.
And one thing,
I'm sorry, we funded those code enforcers from a grant?
That was from a grant.
So is there this statewide vitalization parks community thing possible for a part-time position?
It may be for future funding sources. That application period has closed, but as future funding sources come up, we may be able to look into the funding of a position. So that absolutely could work. It just depends on the parameters of what that funding source would be.
so one thing you mentioned earlier was about the curator being paid out of the park fund and you know, the concerns, and that touches back on my concern that we don't know what that fund looks like, to even know if we should be having this discussion. So that's, just to touch on that, that's one, that's a perfect example of one of our concerns. I do want to say that I am almost certain that I resemble the sentiment of this whole commission when I say that the efforts to find a intern or volunteer or something is deeply appreciated. That's absolutely wonderful that was even thought of, because I didn't think of that. Presented the idea to administration, they said no. Okay, is there any other thing that we can pursue? I appreciate that extremely, and I'm sure we all do. The need for, because as everyone keeps saying, we're very unique in the fact of our museums. We have things in our museums that we have zero idea what some are. We have zero idea what some are worth. We have zero idea if they should be in certain lighting, you know, whatever the case may be. And we don't have that value of those items if something we are doing is incorrect. And that's my concern, is that without somebody that knows and understands and does this as a profession, we don't know if what we're doing is correct. So I think that's the driving force behind we need somebody in that position. Now, I'm fully on board with a part-time person that can come in, you know, and do what they need to do. I personally don't see, but I'm not an expert, I don't see a need for somebody 5 days a week at 40 hours, you know, sitting there looking over the museums. But somebody part-time that can go through things and organize and understand and figure out what we have, absolutely. My biggest concern is this being, I thought this was being recommended to council. I did not know this was being recommended to administration.
Well, the budgets get reviewed administratively first as a team through all the directors.
Correct, the budgets do, but I thought the presentation or presenting of an idea of having a curator position, which, yes, that would be that would fall under budgeting too, but to have that position, I thought it was going to council, I guess is just the bottom line, and I think that we all thought
I
it was
thought so
going.
too.
Okay. Well, I apologize for that. Again, as we were reviewing the budgets, the position was discussed, and knowing the administrator's understanding of the council, I believe that was why it was denied. But again, we can bring it up again for discussion. The presentation is probably a good way to go.
So we need to speak in our 2 minutes, June 15th, and then we need to formally get on the July 6th for a 15-minute presentation? Is that your understanding?
I'm not sure what my understanding is at this point with this.
We as a commission, I'm sure we voted, I remember, then
I don't
asked
think
the
we voted, I think we had a consensus.
consensus that we would bring this to council. So I'm hung up.
We did.
I'm still hung up on why it went to the administrator for budget reasons when it hadn't even been discussed.
Exactly.
Whether we should have the position or not.
Right.
Okay, so let's do this.
I'm
Be-
lost.
Because my question is, how could it be denied as part of the budget when we didn't even know what the budget would be? What would the hourly pay be? We
Right.
didn't even discuss finances. So it was like they rejected it based on no number, but just the concept or the suggestion. We didn't even get into those kinds of details.
Right.
Well, and again, I'm not trying to throw the administrator under the bus. That's not my intent. We had the discussion
Did they give a reason?
that we've had the position in the past. It wasn't, I'm going to be very cautious with my words.
I want to hear it like he said it.
I'm
No,
not
go
going to
ahead.
say it. The position wasn't deemed as necessary in the past. It worked fine for the last 9 years as it is, and we're moving forward in that direction. That
So I-
was the discussion.
I appreciate that, but I think
That was the
our,
Cliff Notes
right.
version.
I think our concern is that it's not working for any longer as it has the 9 years. And that the position, my understanding as of tonight's meeting, the position was cut due to budgeting reasons, not due to the lack of need for that position. I'm sorry? And I fully understand, Don, that you're not the one that made the decision. So please, I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking Lagrone. I'm nobody. I'm just saying that clearly these are our concerns or mine, and I think that I share this with other commissioners, that there has been a need for the position. The position was removed due to budgeting reasons, is our understanding as of tonight's meeting. Not that it wasn't needed or that it's been working fine. So, to move forward from this tonight, sorry, go ahead, Wade.
I just wanted to add that the curator, the previous curator, was also the museum manager, or the state theater manager. And he spent the majority of the time at State Theater doing state theater activities.
Gotcha.
So when you're talking about a full-time curator, as the previous one was, 30 hours a week was spent at the State Theater
Right.
during performances, setups, and things like that. So
And that's exactly
I just wanted
why
to make this body aware of that.
That's exactly why I said I don't see there might be a need, possibly. I don't personally see a need for a full-time curator. I do see a definite need for at least a part-time paid curator that's going to, and the reason that I think it should be a paid position is because if they're being paid to do the job, they're going to do the job correctly. If they're being paid to do the job, they have the credentials to do that job. And I fully appreciate the CSU idea and the folks going to school for it, but I think as an intern or a volunteer or whatever the case may be, they need to work under somebody, especially if the things that we have are as valuable as I'm hearing they are. They need to work under somebody that has the knowledge, experience, and understanding of the items they're working with. That's my take on it. So to move forward from this particular item tonight, I guess the only thing I can personally say is I'm going to be at council and I'm going to use my 3-minute non-agenda item time to specify our need for a curator in our city, just to open that door. And I don't know where we go. I assume that staff will present it to administration for a part-time, and our concerns as to why we need a part-time. We don't know what our budget looks like for a part-time position, let alone any paid position, but we are hiring for multiple other positions now, with funding being where it's at. So I don't find the idea too far-fetched.
And again, I agree that I don't feel a full-time position would be warranted in this situation. Part-time, 10, 15 hours a week. I can stand behind that and back it.
So can we?
The position, again, has to be recreated, has to be approved, so that's something that we can discuss further. But that's where I really wanted to start with Chico State. We can kind of work with them, because it's not just student status. There's professors, there's other people in the historical program that we can lean on for assistance and guidance. And so that would be a good avenue to start with. And maybe somebody, we've piqued their interest and they want to assist us. So that's kind of where we were going with that. Instead of creating this new position, this would be more of a palatable approach. And then that person can further advocate for our position, to either have the curator or a more robust volunteer program. So that was really the intent with it, and I'm sorry I didn't explain it that way out of the gate, but that really was the intent behind going to
So-
Chico State, not the student path, the professor path.
You presented this to them, or you just
No,
opened the door?
not this yet.
Okay. So you are yet to reach out to CSU?
No, we've reached out to CSU, we haven't heard back.
Okay.
Is
Go
that a
ahead.
paid position, or is that a complete just volunteer?
To start, volunteer, to see how it goes.
I love the collaboration, as Commissioner Krantz said. I think we're throwing good money after bad doing that. I think staff is gonna have to manage that position. Staff's gonna have to watch the volunteer. They won't have authority to make decisions. I'm thinking a 15-hour-a-week hired person is what I, as a commission, would like to start with. I'd like to start there, and if we need to move back, we can.
So-
But I'd like to start there.
I would like to throw an idea out to get a consensus of the commission so that we can move on from this item. Do we have a consensus for staff to move forward with the idea of they're reaching out to CSU? Or are we okay with that? Reaching out to them, see what their availability or their offers or whatever is, and also work on the part-time curator position idea. However, I would like to stipulate that I want it presented to council.
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
is that fair enough? Okay. Next item. I think, where'd it go? Okay, commissioner reports. Commissioner Castro.
I have something fun to report. We are planning our scam event for the Exchange Club at Bedrock Park, and I want to thank staff and Wade's group for really working to get Bedrock Park cleaned up for us. I'm really grateful for that. And there are obviously some things that we could do down there that we are putting into the hopper. And that's a little bit of the plan that I'd like to see from staff. I know there's a Portland Loo ordered out there. When do you think we'll get it? I know we're gonna tear down that burned out structure. When might we get to it? And again, I understand that we're not gonna get to everything right away, but a little bit of a project timeline, which, so we can say, well, okay, that's gonna come down next year and the Portland Loos are coming 2024. Like, just to give us an idea, because that'll get all of us off of your back for, well, what happened to that Portland Loo? Right? Something to go along this line.
And I can answer both of those questions now.
Oh,
The
okay.
Portland
Thank you.
Loos have been ordered. The engineering survey, we've met with the surveyor. He is preparing the topographic study and the engineering for connecting it or tying it into our city sewer and running electrical to the Portland Loos, the one at Bedrock Park and the one at Centennial Plaza. On Thursday, I'm meeting with an engineer to review the existing structure so that the plans can be finalized for the kayak kiosk, shack, whatever we're calling it, for that location. Once that is put out for RFP, we will hopefully have a contractor on board to build that kayak kiosk. And then we'll then put it out for RFP to have another agency or a private contractor to run that kayak kiosk. So.
Thank you.
So it is in the works. It's,
Good to
again,
know.
we're glacial. We're government. It doesn't happen overnight. I wish it could, but we have processes to follow. So I would have liked to have had these things done a while ago. But on top of all of that, and I know I'm rambling tonight, but on top of all that, all of the disaster rebuild has stressed our engineering, and not just ours, the community's engineering services, architectural services, contractor services. So trying to even find somebody.
Drove
we
prices skyrocket.
Yes, inflation is out of control. So even with our engineering position that we just flew, we did not receive any applicants. So now we're having to go back out for contract engineering services because there's no private contractors out there. It's just some of the little obstacles we're facing. So we are diligently working on all these items. They're just not happening at the pace we'd
I have a
like.
question.
And I see that, and I'm grateful. That's English.
I have a question about that, real quick. The what is going to become a kiosk at Bedrock, does that fall under our purview?
That will, yes.
It will. It doesn't now. The area.
No, it does now.
Okay.
Bedrock Park falls under your purview.
Okay.
This is the first I've heard about the kiosk.
That's I'm excited for it. I love the idea. I know whose idea it was, and I like the idea, but I'm concerned that it didn't come to this commission prior to the idea flying and plans being made for it and stuff, if that's part of our purview. And that's just another example of the things that we want to see as commissioners, we want to be a part of.
I can also present what the plans are still very rough and crude, but I can present that at the next meeting as to what they are. It's a very basic building with just an open area, an office, and a bathroom.
Right.
So,
And
but
I
I'll bring
meant-
that to you.
With my comment, I meant just even the idea of it being that, or the acceptance of it being that, or whatever. I just would like things that are under our purview to come before us, rather than us hearing about it. And I've heard this idea from the person who thought of it over a year ago. And I didn't know that it was moving forward as it is. And I've been waiting for it to come in front of the commission. And again, these are just things that we as commissioners, we want to see come in front of us, because here's the problem. These things don't come in front of us, then we get asked about them, then here we are telling staff, hey, we have no idea what we're talking about, what's going on, hey, you didn't do this, or whatever. And it's because of just not understanding, or because we didn't know.
Right.
Commissioner, did you have anything else for reports, Kay?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Krantz, Commissioner Khan?
Just waiting for Wade's update.
I was going back to staff because I forgot we were on staff, and I was going to continue that, so I wrote it very big at the bottom of my page. So, I think if we go back to staff reports and then we do topics for future agendas. So back to staff. It's all you.
Okay. So the Malaysian Garden upgrade at the St. Park, I talked to the contractor this morning. They should resume that project on Thursday. They got held up for quite a while on some weed abatement issues, trying to meet the deadlines with the fire prevention. So we're supposed to meet over there Thursday morning, so they can continue that with the bricklaying and the planting and irrigation and things like that. So hoping to have that done soon, because it's sat idle for quite a while. Brian Flicker and the Exchange Club, they did paint the gazebo. They went out there and prepped. Rotary, I'm sorry, I heard Exchange just a few minutes ago. So the Rotary Club, they did not paint the little metal piece up on the top because they just couldn't get up there. So we're gonna take the aerial in there and paint that. But it looks 100% better. They did a great job. So
You're talking about at the picnic area of the Rotary?
no, at St. Park, the gazebo, Brian Flicker and the Rotary Club
Gotcha,
prepped
okay.
and painted it.
Sorry.
The goats, I heard from the herdsmen today, they should be done by next Tuesday. I bring that up because they still are going to go to Hewitt Park and do the kind of the back 40, so to speak, in the hills there at Bedrock or Hewitt Park. You guys have probably seen them all around town, but they should be wrapping that up in about a week. New staff members, we started a seasonal 3 weeks ago. We started 2 new parks employees 2 weeks, or this will be their second week, and 1 new street person, street employee yesterday. So we do have 7-day coverage now in the Parks Department, so we have a weekend person working now. They're opening and closing museums, cleaning the parks, and taking care of whatever messes we see. So we're getting out and about in the parks a lot more with the new employees. And along with new employees, there's a lot more training, with the commercial driver's license and some of the requirements that are there from the city. So, and then a lot more training on tools and equipment. But with that said, I can put 3 or 4 people in a park now and have them clean it and make a presence. We had some graduations last week. We got to go in there and spruce up Centennial Plaza and a few other places, and it's working out great. The reason I bring up a new street employee is because street department helps out in the parks quite a bit. We were able to stripe the Bedrock parking lot, the parking lines, Centennial Plaza. We're waiting for a handicap stencil, so we can do the handicap stencils in the parks and things like that. Along with that, working with the street department, the green line signs, I'm sure you've seen how faded they are. We do have some green line signs that are going to be putting up, and we'll be taking inventory of new green line signs we need to order. So that helps out with the downtown, the museums, and things like that. And it makes the town look a little bit better with newer signage and things. So again, new employees, we have 7 employees now in Parks Department. We still do not have a tree lead person. So P31 is still under contract, but that contract's gonna expire, I think, in the next 2 weeks. We're running out of that funding. With that, the doors at the Pioneer, I did mention that earlier. They're gonna start on those tomorrow. They should be completed by Friday if everything goes well. I think that's about all I have. There's no questions.
At the next Parks Commission meeting, can you bring a report of the tree work that's been done? Hazard tree work, exactly what was I don't know how to word it now.
Of what they've accomplished under their contract?
Not the contractor, what the cities had to do as far as hazard trees, just maybe even just 2020, 2021, as far as mitigating hazard trees in the city.
Do you mean time put into it or specific locations or? 'Cause
Locations, trees, locations, what they were, what the situation was.
And just for hazard trees?
Mm-hmm.
I can probably put something together, yes.
I ask because there's a couple individuals who have asked, citizens who have asked, they actually claimed that nothing gets done about hazard trees and things throughout our city, and I know that's incorrect. And I would like to get something reported so that there's something to reflect upon.
Yeah, I'll do my best to put that together, but I mean, just with the windstorms we had last night, we had one medium-sized limb topple down off a tree, and if we had a lot of hazardous trees down there, we'd have had tree work all night to do.
Right.
So I feel we're very proactive on removing hazardous trees. So even as limited as crew sizes we have been, it's always safety first, safety for the citizens. So if we get a tree complaint, we handle it very seriously. I've been an arborist for going on 25 years now, so I evaluate all trees that I get a complaint about, but some of them I don't deem hazardous. And if they, and I try to explain to a property owner why. I've took the tree risk assessment qualification course. I'm a municipal specialist and a certified arborist, so I've got a lot of schooling and knowledge when it comes to trees, and if people think there's a hazard out there, I hope they would report it. And
Right.
we take it very seriously.
Absolutely. Well, with the concern that was presented, I just want to be able to say, this is what has been done. So, just so the information's out there. I know that I see you guys doing it all the time, but everybody doesn't get around town like I do.
Okay.
Any other staff reports?
I had a question on that vandalism report. There's a gorgeous billboard at the top of Myers as you enter, right by the train. That's just been spray painted.
I've reported that to code enforcement.
Code enforcement, that's
Yep.
what I wanted to know. Okay, that is, thank you.
Code enforcement or the sign company, right?
Just to
I
start,
report it to the code enforcement. They will notify the sign company.
Awesome.
So yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there's cameras over there. All right, future agenda items. Strap in our seatbelts. So I have things. For this, I did have, obviously, the curator liaison. We will see that with the consensus of commission presented to administration, and also we want to see that presented to council. Probably won't be the 15th. Also, recommendations to council, I don't know. So if we want to make recommendations to council as a commission, what is the proper way to do that?
For a park commission recommendation to council, it would take two park commissioners or the chair to make the recommendation. And it depends on what the recommendation is and what the process would be.
Okay. So, for instance, park opening dates. I wanted to get that park opening days, or park openings, the date of the 15th. Museum Day. So these things that I'm listing off are things that I want recommended to council. Park opening days of the 15th. Museum Day, what day can we do that? Because we missed our Museum Day. Recognition of docents, when
Do
we
you
can
mean
have that.
museum, like a museum row day?
I know we had this discussion
Yes.
during the last, And
Yes.
I actually had to pause the video. I watched it all yesterday, and I had to pause it, so I don't remember where I left off, but something of the sort, yes. Either a free admission day for the museum so we can advertise and say, hey, we're opened, come out. And when I say park openings, I mean also museum openings. Fully opened.
And we were hoping that that would be June 15th, and now with Cal OSHA, now with Cal OSHA saying that that day might be extended to the end of July, July 31st, I think is what they are recommending. We are under the mandates of Cal OSHA because we have emergency operational procedures that we have to follow under Cal OSHA. And if we don't follow those procedures, we have the potential of being cited. And if we're cited and then we continue to have issues, then we can be fined, and the fines are very heavy. So we can make the recommendation to council, but I'm just putting
Right.
that information out there.
So let me ask this first and foremost. For the park openings and the museum day and the museum openings, do we, because those fall under our purview, do we need to recommend those to council?
No.
I didn't think so.
We would just open them as everything else reopens. Jordan would put out press release, Facebook campaign, everything.
Okay.
So
And then the recognition of docents?
that is coming too. So we're also wanting to do the docent luncheon and the recognition. Again, we're just waiting for everything to reopen so that we don't have to have certain grouping sizes. We don't want to be considered a mega event is what Cal OSHA is calling them when we have large group gatherings. So we're wanting to do that because we don't want our docents to go unrecognized for all they do.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just requesting clarification on those.
No, absolutely. I'm so disappointed now. July 31st?
Well, it's not set in stone. We're still waiting for all of this information. It's trickling in.
Right.
As we get closer to the June 15 date, it's been so fluid. Everything keeps changing. And so we're like, yay, we know, Matt. Oh, wait, no, Cal OSHA said no.
Right.
So with that said, I just wanted to clarify, because we would reopen anyways, do you want us to send that recommendation to council for those reopenings? Okay,
No,
just
not
confirming.
Not if we don't need to. I just want a set in stone date that our parks and museums are going to open fully so that, and I know our museums are open somewhat now. Our parks obviously don't close per se with fences and doors and locks, but for reservations and, to use the water and power and stuff, I'd like to see, and we can't because of this stuff. I get that and understand that, but I want to see days when we can do that. That way we can get it out there because
We do too.
there's been lots of people who have been asking, what park can I reserve for a birthday or whatever the case may be. So whenever you know that information, if you can let us know.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And then the even larger thing for me is the recognition of the docents, whatever we can do to do that at the very earliest convenience.
Yeah.
That's at the very top of my list because these guys have been working hard, some of them even through COVID restrictions. So I definitely, and like I said, we've talked about this already, but just to stress the point, it's very much needed. It was already talked about by Commissioner Kahn, and I have it written down twice for some reason. And Jordan said she's going to work on it. The accessibility to reserve the museums, and to see the parks and museums overall. So on the city website, if there was a link, and I think there was, things keep getting moved around on there. I've noticed when I go to look for things. But if there was a link just to click museums, and then it takes you to all of our museums and all the information, correct information is listed. Same with parks. Parks, all the parks are listed with all the correct information. I know the parks one was there because I've seen it, but the last time I went to look, I couldn't find the same place I found before.
We'll look at that.
So
Yeah.
things are kind of moving, and I'm not sure if anybody was aware of that.
There's a few people that update the website. And so each department will make recommendations. They send it to either our IT help desk or to Jordan, or there's another person who helps update our website. And so updates are happening continuously. So that's probably
Gotcha.
why things are changing so much.
Awesome. And then the obviously, as Commissioner Khan mentioned, the phone numbers and information. And then I just want to make sure I took notes through here, so I want to make sure I'm not missing anything before I move on, because after I move on, I'm going to shut my mouth. The budget, that's coming back to us, and that, when we come back for our next meeting, that will be on the agenda, correct?
The website updates?
No, the budget, the park budget stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, a budget presentation will be on the agenda.
I wrote down some things. Kay already talked about the Portland Lose, Museum Day, Measure U funding for parks. Koi Pond, there was something else I was gonna ask. I can't even think of what it is right now.
She might have it, I know what it is. Andy's first up.
So I think for me, that is, I did have a question. The fees for events such as the mistletoe party and those things that the fee waivers have been submitted for, when people pay those fees, do they go into the park fund?
For various events, yeah, because that would be a park reservation fee.
So my question,
Bobby, the fee waiver for the mistletoe party is for the entry fees for people who visit, and we do it as a free day.
right,
But
no,
we have to, that's what that's for.
I understand that. My question is regarding the need to go to council for the fee waivers instead
It's
of.
just informational.
Okay.
So under our facility and park fee waiver policy, under exempt organizations is the City of Oroville Docents, Friends of the Parks, and Butte County Elections. So those three organizations are exempt from paying fees for events in our parks and museums.
And I'm perfectly fine with the waivers. Again, if there's a fee waiver request, does that not come to us?
If it's for some other organization, it does, but for the docents, it does not because they're exempt.
Okay.
So that's why it's going on consent, it's informational, going to council.
Gotcha.
So that's why with the fee waivers, we request the 90-day in advance notice for that fee waiver so it can come to you and then it still has time to go to council.
So if it's going into the park fund, if the fee's not waived and that fee is going into the park fund, I guess my question is, why does it need to go to council? I guess is a better question.
It's just informational so that they have it for what events are taking place.
So it's not going to them for approval?
No,
It's going to them just as a report of this is what we're doing?
it should be a report of this is what we're
Okay.
doing.
That's where I was confused. I got the emails that we all got, on what falls under what, and I think those need to be written out a little more or better, but I'm just trying to understand as we go now, what exactly is falling under us and what's not. So with that said, that's all I have. Commissioner Krantz.
So I wanted to ask a question, and this could be put on future agenda, I guess. Could this commission have some guidelines from staff about obtaining advice and true time invested by a previous curator or someone who has extensive knowledge of our museums, that maybe we could, in order to make a really educated presentation to council, maybe we could have some real numbers and weekly hours or monthly hours or whatever they would be interested. Also, I think so that maybe they would take us a little bit more seriously with a little bit of, background information. And I also, in order to avoid any violation of any acts, I don't know how independently this commission could do that, or if that would need to be done during this type of meeting. So that was my first question.
Staff can gather information. We can also work with the docents at their lead docent meeting.
Okay.
And discuss that with them, because many of the docents have been docents in our museums for 20-plus years, so they're
Okay.
very familiar with it.
Great.
So we can work with them as well, and we'll provide you some information. We can send it to you, blind CC via email, and you can provide your comments directly back to us, and it wouldn't be Brown Act violation.
Right, okay. And I know that was what I was specifically asking to avoid. And then my other question for a future agenda specifically is for Commissioner Khan, because I understand that you have facilitated a partnership in the past with the State Theater, and they no longer are, the State Theater, from what I understand, is no longer under this jurisdiction. However, obtaining and showing films at the State Theater might fall under our jurisdiction. And I just wanted to ask the commission and put it out there, is there any interest in, on future budgets, maybe leaving some room for showing some films at the State Theater? I always enjoy myself, my family has enjoyed myself when we have attended those events. And I think with our downtown growing the way that it is, that could be such an asset, even if it was just a monthly or a Saturday thing. It doesn't have to be a film festival per se. It doesn't have to be anything really, I don't know. It could just be a fun event, I think, for families. It doesn't have to be anything really sophisticated, I guess. And so I understand from the previous meeting with the Art Commission that you have been the person in prior years. Is that true, who has sort of facilitated that?
Yeah, I did a film festival through the State Theater. We did a classic films for about, and the biggest thing with the classic films, well, I started doing the renting of the films. Anyway, they cost $300 to $500 to you get the rights to show a film in a theater like that, and sometimes even more than that. So that the funding, I would guess that if it could be, the Arts Commission could back it, but they would want to partner in helping pay for some of the costs.
Okay.
Then, of course, the staff, some of the cities, some of the State Theater staff, I'm not sure who's there now. Some of them were better, knew how to do the films better than others.
Okay.
They don't run it on the projector anymore. They were run like, DVDs. So, but there was still a process to get them to work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. That's all from me.
Commissioner Castro?
Oh, it's already on. Thank you for those agenda items. Thank you. One more, the videos, the museum videos.
Oh, I can tell you too. The videos that we filmed, talked to Eric Smith. He was going to take a hard drive and get them downloaded from the person who was supposed to provide them last week when I talked to him. So hopefully he did get the raw footage anyway, because there's a lot of valuable information on each of those videos from the experienced docents that did the presentations for the original videos we did. Now, the short ones that we did as a catch-up. I think they're still available on the chamber site, but they were supposed to be given to the city also. But Eric Smith was the one who was going to do that.
So I also inquired about this, and my friend is the one who who had the video, the raw video, and was going to edit that. It was a much larger project than expected. And and when I say much for this individual or that individual and myself, when I say much, I mean much more. However, there are some default tours on what I've been told, I haven't seen them yet, but on the chamber website and on the chamber Facebook, there are some of the video tours there. But the extra stuff was delivered on the hard drive to the chamber, and they are going to work on getting those put together, as Commissioner Khan said, and what I was told or informed of.
Will they then be on the city website under parks or museums?
Yes.
And not, or the chamber? That's great, but, okay, thank you.
Any other items for future agenda? Nothing? So I know that you take lots of notes, Dawn. Mm-hmm. What do you have from us for future agenda items, if I may ask?
The curator position, the website updates, the budget presentation. I added the kayak building at Bedrock Park, and the museum films.
And most of those are going to be just reports back, correct?
We can have them be individual staff reports and see if you guys like it that way.
Okay.
I have a few others written down.
See?
Costs of display cases was requested by Castro, and adopt a park information.
Okay.
And I have hazardous tree costs.
Very good. Depending on what the agenda looks like for the next regularly scheduled meeting, I'd like to add going over our goals that we set with the previous commission when we did the little sticky note thing, our priorities, and have a discussion with current commission so that we can make sure that we are where we want to be. I think that'd work good with having the budget information presented to us, and then we can discuss where we want to be and make sure that our goals and our priorities are there.
Okay, a goals discussion, okay.
Anybody have anything else?
We did mention I guess we're waiting on the museum day and the docent appreciation. They may be able to want to bring those back up or just leave those as staff report.
We were wanting to wait a little while on those for everything to open up a little bit more. I know we discussed it prior to this meeting, myself and Dawn, about getting docents together. We wanted to wait a little bit, and doing a free museum day, we wanted to wait a little bit. Right now it's volunteer basis and, not many days that are open, things like that. So we kind of wanted to wait for things to open back up so it wasn't as taboo for us to say, everyone come down and
Right.
bring all your friends. So
I personally would like the free museum day to be after we're open, fully
Yeah.
open, where people can, if we're going to advertise it and push it, then
absolutely.
yeah, absolutely, for me anyway.
Okay. So as soon as we know those kinds of things, we will report back and we'll try to get some dates scheduled.
Anything else, Commissioner Khan?
No, those are just some notes I put down. I'm good.
Commissioner Castro, your name was up there before. Okay. I think that's it. If nobody has anything else, we will adjourn this meeting, and we are scheduled back here for a regular meeting of the, can we please get that changed on here where it says Oroville City Council to Oroville Parks Commission? I keep almost reading that. A regular meeting of the Oroville Parks Commission on August 10th, 2021 at 5 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.